You're listening to No Early GGs.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 76 of the No Early GGs FPL Draft Podcast. This week is what many describe as a blank game week, as 4 teams do not have a game. That is Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, and Luton. Those are some pretty big teams to be missing, so I'm assuming we'll see a lot of waiver movement as people scramble to have full 11s like myself. Mentioned in the last episode that I currently have, I think, 7 playing players against my podcast mate Noah, who is not with me today. So very, very into the transactions page this week, as I tried to get at least probably 9 players to play against him this week. For the format for this week, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to go position by position and talk about players. I'll give some maybe defensive clean sheet rankings and how I would order teams and how good their defensive matchup is this week, and I think that should help with waivers as well. I'll also go through some injuries. There are a lot. I'll probably do that before I go through the positions, but let's get right into it. Noah and I are currently both winning our matchups. Liverpool still have to play Luton in this game week, but I think Noah might have it wrapped up. I still am pending some players playing, so fingers crossed that I don't jinx anything for either of us. I want to start off by talking about Liverpool's injuries. Jota seems to be out for almost the whole season. I saw a report that he's going to miss probably 15 games for Liverpool. Salah and Darwin, there were rumors that they are injured as well. I think that might just be that they are being held out of this Luton game today, which will have happened before this podcast is released, as well as Curtis Jones now being flagged. In Luton's first game of their double, Adebayo also went off injured in the warm-up, so that is another one to keep an eye on, as I will be highlighting some Luton players, especially their forwards, because of this injury, even though they don't play in this game week 26. Alright, I'm going to go through some clean sheet rankings in terms of the fixtures for this game week in particular, which might be a little bit short-sighted, but I think with the amount of teams playing in the shorter list of fixtures, it might be a little bit helpful. I do think City are always at the top, although Wolves are a very close second, playing Sheffield United at home, and I think they have a lot of players available. In our 12-man league in particular, Totti, Semedo, and Ait-Nouri are available, and then Kilman and Dawson are usually their other starters. I would very much target them for this game week, especially if you do not have enough playing defenders. After City and Wolves, I have Arsenal. They are playing Newcastle, which is a tough lineup, or a tough matchup, but Arsenal have already kept a clean sheet against City this season, so they can never be counted out for clean sheets in particular. Next up, I have Manchester United. They have a game against Fulham, although I might actually bump them down a little bit. I saw Shaw went off at halftime in their last game, and they have a ton of injuries too, so I think they might be tied with my next team, which is Brighton, who are playing Everton. I watched Everton's game against Crystal Palace last weekend, and they looked not very dangerous. I know they did score on that corner, but I think Brighton have been a lot better defensively, and I would expect that they could potentially keep a clean sheet here. They probably have some players available as well. Jean-Paul Van Hecke and Lamptey have been playing their most recent games, although Lamptey did have a yellow and went off at halftime in their last game. Estupiñán also did not start that game, so I would expect him to be back, but I've been holding Dunk for the past couple game weeks, and I think he might be a good option, as he has gotten a goal and an assist in the last 5 games. I didn't really go through specific players for Arsenal and Man U. I think there are some options that you could go for. In particular, Kiwior, if he's not picked up, has been playing a lot of Arsenal's games, although Nuzan Zinchenko will very much affect whether or not he's a good pickup this week. I have Crystal Palace next, actually. They're playing against Burnley. They played an interesting lineup where it kind of looked like their outside backs were playing more wing back roles. That would be Mitchell and Munoz. Munoz runs around the field a lot, and Mitchell actually had a 1v1 with the keeper in their last game, so he might be a good attacking option if you are looking to go that route. Burnley aren't the worst attacking, but I think Palace with their new manager, it could be a good time to get in on them because they might be looking better than when they were with Roy. Next up, I have Brentford. They are playing against West Ham. This might be recency bias, but Brentford, barely conceded to City in their game at the weekend, or I guess that was on Monday, yesterday. They look very good. I think they've been rotating some of their defenders a lot. I know Ayer slipped for the goal, but he's been starting, I think, recently. There was no Pinnock, I don't think, in that game either. But Reguilon, I think, is a very good option. He gets very high up the field and very much will do that against a team that's not City as well. I think he has a good chance for getting an attacking return. He did get an assist in their first game of their double game week as well. Next up, I have Villa. Formerly, I probably would have had them a lot higher, but they have a lot of injuries now, especially Boubacar Kamara, who I did mention in the last episode. I don't think they're going to be keeping clean sheets for a while, but I don't think Nottingham Forest is the worst team, and I mainly am ranking Alex Moreno in this. I think if he's available, he should be picked up because he does pretty much sit on the corner of the 18-yard box for a lot of their attacks, and he is very, very offensive. I would be a little bit scared of Luca Digne, as always, but I think Alex Moreno is going to be starting the majority of their games. Next up, I have Everton. They're a lot stronger and more sound defensively than the teams below them in this ranking, but they are playing against Brighton, which I think is always tough. I don't think Pickford or Tarkowski are the worst options this week, but they're definitely better potentially on the waiver wire. Next up, we have Sheffield United playing Wolves. They have better matchups than the teams below them, but I don't think I would ever recommend picking up and starting a Sheffield United defender. Newcastle are next in the list. They have Arsenal, but they are usually a better team. They've been wavering a lot. I'm still holding on to Botman and definitely have to start him this week because I don't have enough players and I'm not going to drop him, so he's going to be in the lineup. Next up, I have Fulham. They're playing Man U. Wouldn't recommend any of these teams that I'm mentioning: Burnley, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth. The one caveat with Bournemouth, I would say, is they are ranked last because they are playing City, but their next fixtures after are very, very good. They have a double against Sheffield United and Luton 2 game weeks from now, or 3 game weeks if you're counting this weekend upcoming. So it might be the time to stack up on them, particularly their attackers. I am going to mention Tavernier in the midfielders section, but in terms of defenders, I think Senesi is probably the best that you're going to get. On to the midfielders. I have a couple midfielders highlighted here. Doucouré is back for Everton. He was very, very attacking, had some shots in the box, and I think he will go back to being their stalwart for the most part. Calvert-Lewin, who I will mention in the forward section because I think Beto should probably start soon, has not scored since game week 10, and I think Doucouré is still their number one option for Everton. I'm going to highlight Callum Hudson-Odoi as well. He scored again in Forest's last game, and he is a great option, as well as Elanga. As I mentioned, Aston Villa have not been very good defensively, and I think Forest have a chance to score against them, especially with Awoniyi back, as Wood is still red flagged. Adingra is back from AFCON and he scored twice. He's probably going to be the number one waiver pickup and should be, as they're playing Everton. Tavernier, as I mentioned, has a double game week upcoming for Bournemouth, and he's probably their second best asset after Solanke. Barnes started for Newcastle again. Wilson is red flagged. I think Isak is orange flagged as well, so I think he could be a good option if he keeps starting, as long as Isak is out, and maybe even will start when he's back. Sarabia with no Cunha. If Hwang is not on the field, he looks to be the penalty taker, but I don't think that'll happen very often. But he does have 6 assists and 2 goals on the season anyway, so I think he's a good option, especially as Wolves are playing Sheffield United in their next game. I saw a question on Reddit: is it time to pick up Mbeumo if he's dropped? I think it is. I mean, he was one of the highest scorers in the game when he got injured. I think he had 7 goals and 2 assists or something like that. So he's definitely one that you would want to pick up if you have the room for him now. He will definitely be the basically the next name on the team sheet after Ivan Toney for Brentford. In terms of forwards, I do have a note on if we see Beto soon for Everton. I don't think he's a pickup now, but if he for some reason hits the ground running, I do think he'll take that starting spot away from Calvert-Lewin, as he has, again, not scored since game week 10. Rodrigo Muniz scored again for Fulham. I don't think he's the worst option because Fulham actually have a game and it's against Man U with some injuries. I think he has 4 goals in the last 3 games as well, so he's going to be starting. I don't think Broja is going to take that starting spot away from him, and maybe not even Jimenez when he's back. We saw Wisa start after coming back from AFCON against Man City, but I would be wary of this pickup as Mbeumo is also almost back. I think he's due back at the start of March. We saw Edouard start again for Palace. I think he lasted about 70 minutes. Got, I think, a shot on target. I don't think he's the worst. He might start more games for Palace, and if Noah were here, he would definitely be, referencing the fact that there are no forwards available. I'm actually mentioning a decent amount of forwards as well. I think this is a good game week to pick people up, as there are people coming back from tournaments, coming back from injuries, so there are a lot more options out there than normal. Another player that I wanted to mention like that is Michael Antonio. He started for West Ham again after a very long time. Somebody actually held him in our league, but he's probably available in a lot of smaller leagues because he has not started a game for a while for West Ham. Also wanted to highlight 2 forwards that have been starting consistently that might not be picked up. They certainly were not picked up in our large league, so they're probably available in other leagues, and that would be Fofana for Burnley and Ogbene for Luton. I think Ogbene had a couple shots on target against Man U, and I think if Adebayo's out longer term, he will be another surefire starter for Luton, although they have been rotating, which is the exact reason that I dropped Carlton Morris a little bit ago and let Noah have him. So once again, you're welcome, Noah. He's on fire. Fofana has been starting a lot of games for Burnley. I think he has 3 goals in the last 5 games or something, which is a lot. You could do a lot worse than that. So I think he's another worthwhile pickup for this week. I think that is going to do it for this episode of the No Early GG's FPL Draft Podcast. A bit of a shorter one, but there are less games, and I just kind of wanted to highlight players rather than going through every single fixture. But, as we always say, even though it's a shorter episode, no early GG's.
You're listening to No Early GGs.